Hey, thank you all for coming to this webinar. We're going to be talking about disability services and supports for when you all return to the Boston campus in January. I know we're still waiting for a few people to trickle in, so we'll just do some quick introductions. So my name is Kyle Droz. I'm the director in the Disability Research Center here in Boston. I hope you've all been having a good semester over on our London campus. So again, on this webinar for the next hour, we're just going to talk to you a little bit about some of the differences, changes about how you access your accommodations, and then some additional campus resources, just so you're aware as you're returning to Boston. So again, my name is Kyle Doris. I'm the director in the DRC in Boston. I've been at Northeastern University for about 10 years now, and I have Jacqueline with me, and I will let her do a little intro on her, and then let her start us off.
Thank you, Kyle. Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Kendrick. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Assistant Director of Northeastern's Disability Resource Center, and I've been here for about 4.5 years, and I've had the delight to work alongside Kyle. And just to reiterate what he said, really excited to have the opportunity to welcome you all to Boston and share some helpful resources to support your transition. Alrighty, so we just have a quick overview agenda, what we're going to try to get through in today's webinar. So to start us off, we're going to be just talking a little bit about the Disability Resource Center's mission and purpose, how we kind of serve and support our students, talk to you about how to access services. We'll be sharing our Disability Resource Center team and who you'll be likely in contact with throughout your time here at Northeastern. We're going to be talking a little bit about documentation and registration meetings. What the process is like to inform your professors of your accommodations, also known as professor notification letters. We're going to be talking a little bit about our testing center and how exam accommodations work, sharing a little bit about housing and dining options here in Boston, additional campus resources, and then have the opportunity at the end for any questions that anyone has. Feel free to drop them in the question and answer box, and we'll also be monitoring that throughout the webinar as well. Alrighty, so DRC, our mission and purpose. So here at the Disability Resource Center, we serve Northeastern students who have documented disabilities as defined by the Americans with Disabilities Act as amended of 2008. So what does this mean? Under the definition, a person with a disability is one with a physical, mental, emotional, or chronic health impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. So here at the DRC, we work with a wide range of students of different types of disabilities. So we frequently work with students who have ADHD or learning disabilities, for an example, students with psychiatric conditions like anxiety or depression, students with chronic health conditions such as diabetes and epilepsy, but by no means an exhaustive list. And our main purpose is really to ensure that students with disabilities have equal access to their academic and student life experience here at Northeastern. And we do that through the provision of reasonable academic or campus life accommodations. And then our guiding principles are informed by federal law regarding disability and privacy, by the university's policies on equal opportunity and non-discrimination, and by the rights and individual needs of the people that we serve. Another thing about accommodations is that they're always reasonable. They're always optional, meaning that students can choose to use them, but they are never retroactive. So they do start at the time a student has been approved and then onward. Alrighty, so how to access services. So we offer one-on-one virtual or in-person appointments with our DRC specialists. So students are always welcome to come by our office once you are on campus. We do host daily walk-in hours, Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Students can always reach out in advance to schedule a meeting, but you're always also welcome to come in and drop by if you do have a question or want to meet with a specialist to get some more information. Students are assigned a designated DRC specialist throughout your time studying at the Boston campus. We also run our testing center here at the DRC, and Kyle's going to be talking about that a little bit farther into the presentation. But our hours of operation are Monday to Thursday from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and we're open Fridays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Any sort of general inquiries that students have can always be sent to our general DRC inbox, which is just drc@northeastern.edu. And we always monitor that email daily, so we can try to get any questions that you might have answered or reach out to you to schedule a meeting if that's needed. If students have any documentation that they need to submit, that can always be uploaded through our DRC portal page, which is connected to your Student Hub account, or it can be emailed to our confidential DRC documentation email address, which is listed on the slide here. It's just DRC documentation at northeastern.edu. All right, so here are our team of disability specialists and my lovely colleagues. We have Brittany Brown, Kate Schultz, Caroline Scannell, Kim Drastel, Jillian Landry, and Betsy Ireland. So these are all full-time DRC employees, so they are available to support you all throughout your journeys here at Northeastern and navigating your accommodations. So come the beginning of the spring semester, you are going to be hearing from one of these individuals. They're going to reach out to you via email to introduce themselves as your disability specialist, and they will be your primary point of contact throughout your time here at Northeastern. And they sort of serve as like another set of advisors for students in some ways. They can help you navigate any access barriers that you're encountering in regards to your disability. They're there to support you in making sure that you're appropriately utilizing your accommodations and answering any questions or concerns that you might have as well. So like I said, you'll hear from one of them at the beginning of the spring semester. If you don't, for whatever, hear from one of these individuals, please just reach out to the general DRC inbox. We'll make sure to get you connected with one of them, and they're going to support you in getting officially registered with our office. All right, and here's just our DRC operations team. So we have Abby Kidder. She's our exam services associate. So she oversees our testing operations and our front desk operations. We have Samara Stern, who is our note-taking services coordinator. So for any students that have a note-taking based accommodation, she will work with you to make sure that you have the access that you need for that. And then we also have Samira Ketcherside. She's our front desk assistant. So she works closely with Abby and Samara to manage the front desk operations for when you all come in to either meet with your specialist or to take an exam, for example. All right, and so documentation. So I know many of you have already submitted documentation for your first semester over in London. So if you have done so already, there is no need to resubmit that documentation. The only reason in which you might be asked to submit any new or additional documentation is if there's been an additional or new diagnosis you would like us to have on file that was not previously disclosed. If there's been a change in the nature, the severity of the existing condition for which you might need additional supports or additional accommodations for, we will definitely entertain and encourage you to submit information for us to review if anything has changed at all. And if that is the case, then you may be asked for a clinical update if you are going to be pursuing a new or additional type of accommodation request. And we do have a number of disability disclosure forms on our website that your treating medical clinicians can fill out for us to get us some more information about its impact so that we can determine what additional accommodations you might be eligible to access. As previously mentioned too, all documentation can be sent to our confidential DRC documentation email address, which is listed on the slide here. Or if you're familiar with using our portal already, there is an option for students to upload documentation directly through the Student Hub as well. All right, so registration meetings. So as I mentioned earlier, every single student that's going to be newly transitioning to the Boston campus and who has been approved for accommodations is going to be asked to participate in what we call a registration meeting with their disability specialist. And so, like I mentioned, we will be reaching out to students individually sometime in early January to invite you to register with our office, and that email will be sent from one of the designated disability specialists. So during the registration meeting, it's really an opportunity for students to come in, to meet with their specialist face to face, to get a feel for our location on campus. And if a student is approved for any exam-based accommodations, you'll be able to see our testing center for the first time, an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have and share any concerns. During this meeting, all students sign off on a form called a Student Service Agreement form, also known as an SSA. And this is a document which basically outlines all your approved accommodations and how you can go about accessing them so that we have everything kind of in a nice place on file with us here at the DRC. And this is really helpful because say in the future, any of you decide to pursue accommodations at an additional university or say a graduate school entrance exam, we always can come back to the Student Service Agreement form and verify that you were an official DRC student and what accommodations you had in place for you here at Northeastern to serve as potential history for any future accommodations. During these meetings, students will also be instructed on steps to access their accommodations here at the Boston campus. So we'll kind of go step by step and walk you through everything that you'll need to know. For any relevant academic or classroom-based accommodations, students will be taught how to request what's called their professor notification letters, which Kyle will talk a little bit about later on in the presentation. And then there's also, like I mentioned, just overall the opportunity to meet with your specialist and to address any questions or concerns you might have. These meetings can also be held virtually as well, if that is a preference for the student. So we are flexible in terms of the method of these registration meetings. All right, and I think I'm going to turn it over to Kyle now, and he's going to share more about the professor notification letter process.
All right, thank you, Jacqueline. So the professor notification letter request. So things we want to make sure you're aware of this, because this is one of the changes from London to Boston. In London, from what we understand, is the professors were all notified of everyone's accommodations kind of automatically at the start of the semester. Now that you're back on the Boston campus, that is a process that you need to initiate each semester. And your DRC specialist during that registration meeting, Jacqueline just spoke of, will walk you through how to make the request. So you're basically requesting what's called a professor notification letter, or P&L, at the start of every semester. Doesn't mean you're submitting new documentation, but you do this letter request thing start of each term. Again, it's not an automatic process. You do need to submit them by logging into your portal, and then you just select one at a time the courses you'd like us to send letters for. Once that request has been submitted, usually within a couple of business days, we will send, it's an email that goes out to your instructor, and all that has on it is your name, your ID, and your approved accommodations. One thing we do not share with your instructors is your actual disability and your diagnosis. We keep that very strictly confidential. Only the 12 people in our office really can see that information, so that's really all we're sharing in those letters. And again, as far as confidentiality, I always like to touch on, working with our office doesn't go beyond our office or your individual professors. So it doesn't show up on a co-op, it doesn't show up on a transcript, doesn't show up for your academic advisors to know. We'll only talk to the professors that you request one of these letters for. And those are the only people that will be notified you're even working with us. So to request them, again, this will all be covered in your registration meeting, but you just start on our website, so northeastern.edu/DRC, click on Register Students tab, and then click on Accessing Your Portal. It's a big red button. And then just follow the prompts in the drop-down menu and just let us, and usually within 2 or 3 days, it says 3 to 5, usually within 2 or 3, we will send those letters out to your instructor. We highly encourage students to send an optional follow-up email to your instructor, just verifying that they got the letter. Introduce yourself. It's a way to break the ice. If there's other additional things you want to share about your diagnosis, or how they can best support you, learning styles, it's a great way to break the ice by having this letter sent directly from our staff. So this is an example of what the letters look like. There's a little blurb on the top just about the Americans with Disabilities Act, ways the professor can contact us if they're not sure what an accommodation means or they have questions. And again, we fill in the term, your name, your student ID, and then we just list off the accommodations you're approved for. Things like housing accommodations don't usually go in the letter because they're not particularly relevant to instructors. So it's just going to be anything classroom related, things like recording device in class, note-taking services, interpreter services, things like that, or exam related. So extra time on exams, reduced distraction setting, use of computer, things like that. So that's all that's going to be on the letter. So another thing that's different from London to Boston is how exam signups happen. So in London, I know all of the exam signups for extra time were all kind of scheduled at the start of the semester by staff, and then you're just kind of told to show up and you'll get your extra time at this location at this time. On the Boston campus, again, this is all done and driven by the student. So for each exam you want to take in the DRC, you're going to need to schedule what's called a room reserve. And again, it's through the same portal. And we're going to ask that you schedule that at least a week in advance. We do have a decent amount of space in the office, but it's not unlimited. So that's why scheduling a week in advance gives us time to plan space if we need to get additional spots around campus and secure more seats. It also allows your professor enough time to send us your exam and any instructions we have. And typically once that exam is submitted through the portal, or once that request is submitted through the portal, it sends an email directly to your instructor just saying you're going to take the exam in the DRC and please send all the information to us. We ask that you show up and the DRC at that date and time, and you should be scheduling at the same time as your class. If you have extra time, you may need to start a little bit earlier and run slightly later, but we do want to have some overlap with the class for academic integrity purposes. You can schedule. We are open 8 to 7 Monday to Thursday and 8 to 5 on Friday. So as long as your exam is falling within that time, that's okay with us. Anything that is an exam, even if it's take home, that's under 24 hours, you are still eligible for extended time. So if you can take an exam at home and once you open it, you have 4 hours, that is still eligible for additional time, based on as long as you're approved for additional time on tests. We do ask that you show up about 10 to 15 minutes early for your exam if possible, just so we can get you checked in, collect your bag, all your belongings, your cell phone. We put it behind our front desk and hold it for you. And then we'll typically put you in a space. It's either going to be in a room by yourself or most likely in our large testing room. So you'll be with about 5 to 10 other students at any given time. You are allowed to get up, use the restroom, bring in water, food, coffee. We have white noise machines going. You're also allowed to bring earplugs or noise canceling headphones as well. If you ever have any questions during exams for your professor, please just come out to the front desk. We will call them, send them an email, ask them to call us back, and anything like that, just to make sure you get your question answered. And we're trying to simulate as similar an experience that your classmates had in the class that you'll have with us in our center. So again, how to reserve room, just follow these prompts on our website. You're going to want to reserve the room again 1 to 2 weeks in advance, 2 weeks definitely for final exams. We want to make sure you're not overlapping exams with other classes. So if you're back-to-back classes, we don't want you missing class to take an exam for a different class. So if you have 3 in a row, we can definitely work with you and your instructors to kind of figure out scheduling to make sure that everything works and you're getting to all your classes on time. So another thing we just wanted to kind of touch on briefly that is slightly different is housing and dining in Boston. So I know in London, you're all pretty much in apartments, you have access to kitchens, you're kind of preparing your own food. And basically living in, I think most folks over there have single bedrooms. So back in Boston, most likely you're going to have roommates, be in doubles, potentially triple rooms. Most likely, most of you will not have access to kitchens. So we do want to go over, there are meal plan options. If there are food allergies and things, please reach out to us prior to arriving on Boston. If you have concerns about what would be available, there are a number of stations. There's Delicious Without Station in International Village, which is one of our main dining halls. That is a station that is free from, I think, the 8 most common allergens that are listed here. So things like soy, gluten, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, shellfish, eggs, dairy, and sesame. So that station is a good option for students. We also have a vegan option that is also gluten-free and some other options around there. But anyone has questions about dining, we definitely want you to reach out to us early before you arrive so we can make sure paperwork's in and your room placement and housing placement is all set. We also have a staff dietitian, Gabby, who is a great resource. So if you have questions, definitely you can reach out to her as well. And she can help students navigate dining halls and different options in multiple different dining halls that we have on campus, just to make sure all your dining needs are being met. So some additional campus resources we just like to touch on. So University Health and Counseling, or UHCS, is our on-campus kind of health clinic, so they can do appointments for vaccinations, wellness visits or sick visits if students are sick. They also do mental health check-ins or things like that. They can also refer you to folks out in the community if you're looking for more long-term care, whether that be behavioral health or physical health. We also have the We Care office that some of you may already be familiar with. So that is an office that works with students across all Northeastern's campuses, excuse me, on kind of crisis support and, things that difficulty students may be having, they don't quite fit into any particular basket. And they're a great resource to kind of collaborate with and kind of direct you to other resources on campus if you're not quite sure where to go or what the appropriate office would be. We also have Spaces at Northeastern, and that is a website that can help you reserve space on campus, whether that be study space, space for telehealth, mental health appointments, space to do meditation, all things like that. So that's all available through Spaces at Northeastern. We have our housing and residential life staff. So that is if there are roommate conflicts that come up, students have questions after hours, their RAs are available to answer questions or again, point you in the right direction to resources. We do have a very robust peer tutoring support services for most courses. So that is all can be done through your hub. Once you get to Boston, that'll open up and you can schedule peer tutoring appointments. It can be done virtual or in person for any content tutoring support you might need. We also have a pretty robust writing center for any student that has issues or concerns with, writing supports, get proofreading drafts of papers, help with citations, different things like that. We also have Diversability, which is a relatively new, they've been around about 2 or 3 years, student-run group for students that self-identify as having a disability. So they're constantly running events on advocacy, social events, usually the start of every semester. And they'll advertise through us just to get more students involved in the group. It's students of all different diagnoses, all different abilities, just to kind of raise some awareness and some good education kind of on campus. So again, our contact information, we're located in 20 Dodge Hall. So when you come to campus, we're in Dodge Hall, we're on the Krentzman Quad, we're in Suite 20, which is in the basement. General email inquiries can be sent to drc@northeastern.edu. That is our general front desk phone number. So again, as Jacqueline said, if you don't receive an email from a specialist by the time you move into campus, the beginning of January, definitely either stop by the office, shoot us an email, and we'll get you connected with your specialist to make sure you're registered and everything's ready to go for the start of the semester. And just hours of operation again, 8 to 7 Monday through Thursday and 8 to 5 on Friday. You can drop in at any time, schedule exams during that time, and use our center for, if you need to use it for telehealth or study rooms, you can also do that as long as we don't have excessive testing going on at that time. Yeah, and I guess any questions anyone has in the chat, feel free to throw them in, and we'll give you guys a few minutes to pop any questions in the chat. And if questions do come up after this, again, feel free to email us. One question that was in the chat was if you've already submitted accommodation paperwork, and you were asked to submit it again, most likely I wouldn't worry if that has something that's happened. Definitely email us. It might have been just that it crossed in processing, or someone didn't see it in there. But if you, like Jacqueline said, if you've been approved for something, generally it's not going to be taken away, and generally it's just going to be how you access it that's going to be the difference. But generally, if you already submitted and been approved by the London team, you're not going to be asked to submit again. And I'll just put the slide with our contact info back up. So next question, how to get single accommodation for disability purposes. So you need to start off by submitting, if you're not already approved for a single, maybe because you've just had one by chance in London, I would say start off by submitting a new student self-disclosure form, which can be found on our website, letting us know what's the disability or condition you're asking for the single in. And then we'd also need probably additional information from a doctor, therapist, depending upon if it's a physical issue or psychiatric, just in support of the single, and then we'll review that. We do that on a rolling basis, so there is no hard deadline. Obviously, the sooner you get in, it's reviewed, the sooner your housing placement will be put up and adjusted. But if it does come in after the start, we will work with housing to make sure students are moved as needed.
I just also linked, I think, the student disclosure form in the chat.
Perfect.
You can start there too.
Perfect. And if there are specific questions, again, on any of this, feel free to shoot us an email just to drc@northeastern.edu. Let us know you're on the webinar, and Abby will forward it to either Jacqueline or myself, and we'll get back to you. Just make sure we want to make sure everything's as buttoned up and as transparent for when you return in January, so you're hitting the ground running with your accommodations that you've had. Any other questions in the chat? Like I said, if stuff comes up later, feel free to shoot us an email. Yeah. If no one else has any questions, then we can kind of probably duck out early and get a half an hour back. But again, if anything does come up or you have questions, any questions, concerns about the transition, accommodations in Boston, please feel free to reach out to us, shoot us an email, give us a call, and we'll get everything squared away. So yeah, thanks
All
for
right.
spending the time with us, and we hope you enjoyed your London experience. We look forward to seeing you and welcoming you back to Boston in January.
Yes, thank you all.